Hi, my name is Will.
My name is Anand.
And I'm Jamie.
So today we're going to be reviewing the second album by Joey Badass titled Summer Nights. And just to give you some background information, it was released on July 1st, 2013. And it was originally supposed to be an album titled Before Da Money, but it was instead made into a mixtape. And when Joey Badass first released his debut mixtape, 1999, he was still in high school, and he gained a lot of traction, showing up on multiple TV shows such as, I believe, MTV, as well as Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. And he's just had a really good career so far. And he's actually part of the hip-hop collective known as Pro Era. It consists of all of his friends, basically just a bunch of young kids. They're also producers as well. For first impressions, I was rather impressed with the improvement in production as well as the maintained level of lyricism on this project. In comparison with 1999, I thought that Joey's producers, some of them being from Pro Era, and then some of them also just being guest producers, I thought that they all did an amazing job in providing Joey with very boom-bap influenced beats that still infuse modern instrumentation and contemporary musical characteristics. I feel like that's always a challenge in terms of production when you're trying to emulate old school hip hop, because it can oftentimes sound outdated, and I thought that they did an excellent job in providing him with very modern style beats. And in terms of Joey, I felt like he brought his A game in terms of his lyrical content, and it didn't feel recycled or generic at all because of the significantly different material which he addresses, going from his recent fame as well as his relationships to the death of his good friend and co-founder of the Pro Era movement, Capital Steez.
I think this album kind of has a monotonous feel overall. There are definitely some standouts, especially the last two tracks, hashtag Long Live CeeLo and Unorthodox. But I feel like these two are definitely not worth the weight of this 17-track album. I feel like the first 15 songs were kind of, I don't know, they don't really fit together for me, and none of them really stand out until you get to those last two. And even then, it's not really totally worth the wait.
He's very good at what he does, but I think that he might stick to it too much. There's not enough variation with the album, in my opinion. And like Jamie said, it makes it kind of hard to listen to all the way through.
I definitely could see that being something that would not really help the overall enjoyability or entertainment value of this project. I feel like one of the weaknesses of this album is how kind of old it sounds. You know, it kind of has a very old flavor to it, and it isn't necessarily like something which people are used to. It's definitely hard to get a grasp of it.
Yeah, that's also, his voice is a little bit monotonous, and also I think that while the beats are very interesting and they're fun to listen to, they're a little bit too relaxed. They're not exciting. There's on the song Aloha, it had a very jazzy feel to it, but it wasn't like exciting jazz. There's certain types of jazz that if you listen to it, it hypes you up and it's very exciting and you want to listen to it. But it's just kind of puts you to sleep a bit, and it's harder to pay attention to the lyricism because there's nothing really creating peaks. And yes, his lyricism is very good, but you really have to be into it to get the full extent of what he's saying. Because if you just even lose focus for a little while, you miss what he's saying.
I definitely agree with that. He has a very laid-back style of rapping, and it's not that kind of aggressive style that I think a lot of people are used to, and it's very hard for a listener, especially somebody who's listening to him for the first time, to get into this album. I don't know about his past work, but this was just very, very slow-paced and not extremely grabbing or catching in any way.
I would actually disagree with the part about his level of aggression. I actually think that he sounds a lot more cynical in this, and in fact, a lot of the times he's shouting his lyrics. So I wouldn't say that he isn't as aggressive, but I would definitely agree with the point about how the production is kind of it isn't developed as much. So I definitely can see why that might not be like very entertaining. But you have to realize that at the heart of it, you kind of just want like this background in order to listen to what he's saying. Like, it isn't the main focus of what the music is.
I also do think that his voice is not exactly super distinct. Like, it doesn't stand out from the beat itself too much. Like, Earl Sweatshirt, I think, has, like, as an example of another artist, he is very laid back. He's very slow, and people have proved that. That just the way he speaks in his music, he has slow beats, and he also speaks slower than almost any rapper out there. But what makes it easy to listen to is the fact that his voice is very distinct and very clear cut, so you can really listen to it. I think that Joey Badass's voice kind of gets lost in the beat. It's just soft, and I mean, while he is screaming, his voice is not like very distinct.
It's actually interesting you brought up Earl, because some might argue he has one of the most, I wouldn't say like boring voices to listen to, but it's so like monotonous kind of.
It's
like, I don't really.
It's monotonous, but when he says something, the syllable is like clearly pronounced, and but
Yeah.
I feel like Joey Badass, on the other hand, kind of mushy.
I mean,
Mush mouth.
I love Earl Sweatshirt. Like, I think he's in a completely different category of his own because of just his lyrical genius in terms of the way how he chops up a beat and his overall flow. But I would actually say like what you're saying right now is more descriptive of what Earl kind of sounds like. Like, I would say like Joey has a lot. Like, I would definitely say there's a lot more energy in Joey's rhyming than Earl's.
But I mean, it would benefit. What I'm saying is, one thing that I like more from one and from the other is that, like, his voice. What I'm saying is that Joey Badass's voice is not as like driving. I don't know.
I agree with him. I think his voice is, I don't know, it's just not interesting. For me, at least, it's not something I find interesting to listen to past a certain point. On certain tracks, like I said, the last two, I think he's very engaging, and you want to listen to what he's saying. But other than that, for me, there wasn't anything that stood out to me, and his voice kind of just faded into the background.
Some of my favorite songs, actually, because of the production especially, were Trapdoor, 9-5 Till Infinity, and Rain. I really liked the production on all of these. I thought that like it had a very nice sound to them, just like the very slow and kind of atmospheric beat that just accompanied all of these. So overall, I thought that this album was very entertaining. It showed great improvement from both Joey and his team, and it presented tracks that have extensive replay value. I wouldn't say that this is a perfect album. A perfect album, for example, would be the group project which they put out, the Apocalypse, or Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. I was not impressed to the level or extent as I was by those albums. Even though the majority of the tracks were good, I felt like it wasn't enough to like make this like my favorite album, period. So, but there was definitely improvement made, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give Summer Nights a good 8 to an 8.5.
So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on a lot of those points, but I feel like most of the album for me was just kind of difficult to get through, aside from maybe 3 or 4 songs that I actually thought were enjoyable and I would definitely want to go out and listen to again. I think overall he's just kind of confused with where he's going, and that leaves me just feel like this album is just kind of unfulfilling in general, and overall I think I would give it maybe a 6 out of 10.
And yeah, I do think he's going in the right like direction with his music. He's talking about interesting material. His beats are very reminiscent of those from like the renaissance of hip hop back in like the 80s and 90s. He's doing everything right. I just think there's something that like he needs one thing, and it's just he needs something to draw the attention to the music. He needs a spark to get people interested, and like it's good music. It's good material. Like I liked listening to it, but until he finds a way to really draw in listeners and keep them interested for the entire album without boring them, I think it's just going to be a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to listen to, and because of the fact that I couldn't just really get into the album, yeah, I'd have to give it about what she did, about a 6.